Rainy night, parking lot behind the movie theater. Evan Cole, 33, single dad in a worn work jacket, holds his little daughter Mia's hand. At the same time, Laura Sterling, 29, young CEO in an evening dress, carries her son Ethan, 6. Gunshots crack the air. Two strangers charge out from the shadows. Evan's instinct kicks in. He pushes Mia behind a car, then rushes to shield Ethan. The bullet grazes his shoulder. Blood spatters. He manages to tell the boy, "You're safe, kid." Laura panics, clutching her son, her eyes meeting Evan as he collapses, still gripping his silver pocket watch. The next morning, 6 black SUVs suddenly block the narrow street in front of his house, and no one knows what they came to do. Evan Cole's life runs on precision born from necessity. Day shift, electrical repair work in office buildings across the city. Night shift, rideshare driver navigating late-night routes to make ends meet. Between shifts, everything a 7-year-old needs from a father who's also trying to be her mother. The silver pocket watch never leaves his vest pocket. It belonged to his grandfather, a man Evan barely remembers except for stories about quiet heroism and helping strangers. The watch face shows time slightly off. The hands don't align perfectly, but Evan keeps it anyway. Time stops for the important moments, he tells Mia when she asks why he doesn't get it fixed. Mia has her own ritual. Every morning before school, she folds a bright orange paper crane and tucks it into her father's work pocket. "For luck, Daddy," she explains with 7-year-old certainty, "so nothing bad happens while you're helping people." Today, she's made 2 cranes. One for you, one for me. We match. Laura Sterling operates in a different universe entirely. At 29, she's the youngest CEO in the tech industry, having built her company from a college dorm room idea into a billion-dollar enterprise. But wealth couldn't save her husband from cancer 2 years ago, leaving her to raise 6-year-old Ethan alone while managing board meetings and investor calls. Ethan's security blanket is a sea blue scarf that Laura wraps around his shoulders during thunderstorms, doctor visits, or any moment when the world feels too big for a little boy. She keeps an identical one in her office desk drawer for emergencies. "When you wear this, you're safe," she tells him, the same words her own mother used during childhood fears. The humiliation came 3 days before the shooting. Evan was buying groceries at the upscale market near Mia's school, splurging on name-brand cereal because she'd had a hard week. The security guard, seeing a man in work clothes with paint-stained hands, made assumptions. The confrontation was quiet but devastating. Bag checks, receipt verification, whispered accusations. Laura was 2 aisles away, selecting organic produce for a company event. She witnessed the entire scene, the way Evan's shoulders sagged, how he gently explained to Mia that some people make mistakes about other people, the dignity he maintained while being treated like a criminal. She wanted to intervene but hesitated, caught between social protocols and human decency. By the time she decided to act, Evan and Mia were gone, leaving her with uncomfortable questions about privilege and courage. The memory stayed with her, especially the way the man had protected his daughter's feelings, even while being humiliated. 3 days later, in the movie theater parking lot, Laura recognized that same face just before the gunshot started. The attack happened fast. 2 men emerged from behind a van, weapons drawn, shouting demands that made no sense in the chaos. Evan's response was pure instinct. Secure his own child first, then protect whoever else needed protecting. The bullet tore through his shoulder, spinning him sideways. Blood bloomed across his work jacket, but his voice stayed steady. "You're safe, kid. I've got you." Later, in the hospital emergency room, Evan refused all interview requests. "I just want to go home to my daughter," he told the reporters camping outside. But the cameras caught everything anyway. The paint under his fingernails, the modest clothes, the silver pocket watch he clutched like a lifeline. The local news ran the story as "Anonymous Hero Saves CEO's Son," complete with speculation about motives and background. Online comments ranged from praise to suspicion, probably staged for attention. "Heroes don't need publicity. Poor people will do anything to get rich people's attention." Mia cried herself to sleep that night, her orange paper crane crumpled in her fist. If danger came tonight, who would you risk everything for? Name them in the comments. your child, your family, or even a stranger. Subscribe to see how one father answered. The media circus starts before Evan even gets home from the hospital. By morning, his apartment building is surrounded by news vans with satellite dishes, reaching toward the gray sky like mechanical flowers seeking attention. The headlines range from patronizing to cruel. Nameless risk-taker saves CEO's child. Working man plays hero for rich kid. The comment sections explode with speculation and judgment. Probably staged for his 15 minutes of fame. Real heroes don't need publicity. Poor people will do anything to get noticed by the wealthy. The cruelest comment comes from someone using a fake profile. Bet he's expecting a big payday now. Evan turns off his phone and focuses on Mia, but the damage spreads beyond their control. At school, other children repeat things they have overheard from their parents. During lunch, a classmate approaches Mia's table with practiced cruelty. "My mom says your dad is just a cheap hero," the boy announces loud enough for everyone to hear. "She says he only helped because he wanted money." Mia's face crumples. She pulls the orange paper crane from her pocket, the one she made to match her father's, and slowly tears it into small pieces. The bright paper falls like confetti onto her untouched sandwich. Meanwhile, Laura faces her own pressures. Her PR team schedules an emergency meeting in the steel and glass conference room that overlooks the city. The message is clear and unanimous. Distance herself from the incident. "Don't appear publicly with him," advises her head of communications, a sharp woman in an expensive suit. "It'll damage the company's carefully crafted image. The market doesn't like messiness." Her board member, a man who measures everything in quarterly reports, leans forward. "We're grateful for what he did, of course. But gratitude and business strategy are separate considerations." Laura stares out the window at the city below, thinking about the man who bled to protect her son while she stood frozen. What if we helped him? Quietly? Absolutely not. Any financial assistance will look like an admission that we somehow owe him something. It creates liability. That evening, a particularly aggressive reporter manages to bypass building security and corners Evan as he returns from picking up Mia from school. The man shoves a microphone toward them, cameras rolling. "Mr. Cole, have you contacted CEO Sterling about compensation for your heroic act?" The question is loaded with implication. Evan puts himself between the reporter and Mia, his wounded shoulder protesting the movement. No comment. "Come on, surely you expect something in return? Medical bills? Lost wages? A thank you would be nice, wouldn't it?" I said no comment. Evan's voice stays level, but his hand finds the silver pocket watch in his vest, gripping it like an anchor. "What about you, sweetheart?" The reporter tries to aim the microphone at Mia. "How does it feel to have a hero daddy?" That's when Evan's patience breaks. Not with anger, but with the quiet firmness of a man protecting what matters most. "Interview's over. Move away from my daughter." He guides Mia inside, locks the door, and slides the security chain into place. Through the window, he can see the reporter already broadcasting, spinning the encounter into whatever narrative will get the most clicks. That night, as rain patters against their small apartment windows, Mia sits at their kitchen table with her homework spread before her. But instead of math problems, she's staring at the torn pieces of her orange crane. "Daddy, why are people saying mean things about you?" Evan sits beside her, his silver pocket watch resting on the table between them. The hands still don't align properly, frozen at a moment that doesn't match real time. Sometimes when people don't understand something, they make up stories to explain it, he says carefully. They can't imagine helping someone without wanting something back. "But you didn't want anything." "No, sweetheart. I just wanted that little boy to be safe." Mia nods solemnly, then begins gathering the torn orange paper. "Can we fix my crane? We can make a new one." As they work together, folding fresh orange paper into clean lines and careful creases, Evan notices the silver watch hands have moved slightly. Still not accurate, but different from before. Time doesn't stop for important moments, he realizes. It slows down just enough for you to choose who matters. Outside their window, 6 black SUVs pull quietly into position along their narrow street. Neighbors peek through curtains, phones already dialing friends to report the unusual activity. FBI? Someone whispers. Mafia? Another voice suggests. Maybe it's about the shooting. The vehicles arrange themselves with military precision. 2 at each end of the block, 2 in the middle. Tinted windows reveal nothing. License plates show government codes that mean nothing to civilian observers. Evan doesn't notice the growing crowd of neighbors on the sidewalk, all staring at the mysterious convoy parked outside his building. He's too focused on helping Mia perfect the wing folds on her new orange crane. There, she says with satisfaction, placing the completed bird in his shirt pocket. Now you're protected again. The next morning, when Evan opens his front door to take Mia to school, he finds himself face to face with something he never expected. When Evan opens his front door, the last thing he expects to see is Laura Sterling standing on his doorstep. But there she is. No bodyguards, no entourage, just a woman in simple jeans and a white blouse holding her son's hand. Behind her, the 6 black SUVs have disgorged a small army of security personnel, who now form a protective perimeter around the entire block. Neighbors cluster on sidewalks, phones out, recording everything. Mrs. Sterling? Evan's voice carries surprise and something that might be worry. Is everything okay? Laura's response stops every conversation on the street. She kneels down to Mia's eye level, pulling the sea blue scarf from her purse, the same one she uses to comfort Ethan during storms. Your father saved my son's life, she says clearly, her words carrying to every phone, microphone, and news camera, now converging on the scene. From this moment forward, your family is under my protection. She wraps the blue scarf gently around Mia's shoulders. When you wear this, you're safe. That's a promise. The crowd erupts. Camera flashes burst like lightning. Reporters shout questions over each other, but Laura's security team maintains the perimeter, giving the family space for what comes next. You didn't need to come here, Evan says quietly, but his hand finds Mia's shoulder, steadying both of them. Yes, I did. Laura stands, facing him directly. 3 days ago, I watched you get humiliated in a grocery store. I should have spoken up then. I should have done something, but I was a coward. The admission sends shockwaves through the gathering crowd. CEOs don't usually confess moral failures this publicly. When I saw your face in that parking lot, right before the shooting started, I knew exactly who you were. The man who protected his daughter's feelings while being treated like a criminal. The same man who took a bullet for my son. Laura reaches into her other pocket and pulls out a manila envelope, thick with documents. There's something you need to know about your grandfather. Evan's hand instinctively goes to the silver pocket watch in his vest. My grandfather? 25 years ago, there was a fire at the children's shelter downtown. An electrical problem started the blaze just after midnight. 43 kids were inside, including a 7-year-old girl whose mother worked double shifts to keep them both alive. Laura's voice breaks slightly, but she continues. A maintenance worker was driving by when he saw the smoke. He ran into that building 6 times, carrying children to safety. The last trip, the ceiling came down on him. He saved 43 lives and died a hero. She hands Evan the envelope. But the newspapers called him an unnamed maintenance worker. The city listed him as unidentified rescue personnel. He was forgotten in a week. Evan opens the envelope with shaking hands. Inside are newspaper clippings, official reports, and a photograph that makes his breath catch. His grandfather, younger than Evan remembered, standing beside a fire truck with soot on his face and a child in his arms. That 7-year-old girl was me, Laura whispers. Your grandfather saved my life, and 25 years later, his grandson saved my son's life. The crowd has gone completely silent. Even the reporters have stopped shouting questions, recognizing they're witnessing something larger than a news story. I've carried his picture in my wallet for 25 years, Laura continues. I built my company partly to honor the man who gave me a future, but I never knew his name until 3 days ago, when my security team ran background checks after the shooting. She pulls out a worn photograph, the same image from the envelope but smaller, creased from decades of caring. Samuel Cole, your grandfather, the most famous unknown hero in this city's history. Evan stares at the photograph, then at his pocket watch. The hands that never aligned properly, the time that never matched reality. Suddenly, it makes sense. The watch stopped at the moment his grandfather made his last rescue, the exact time he chose to save one more child instead of saving himself. The Cole Legacy Fund, Laura says, producing another set of documents. It's been waiting for 25 years to find Samuel Cole's family. 43 lives he saved, 43 families who never forgot his name. They've been contributing to a fund that bears his name, hoping someday to thank his family properly. The macro spike hits when Laura reveals the fund's total, $2.3 million, accumulated over decades by grateful families who never forgot the man who saved their children. But that's not why I'm here, Laura says quickly, seeing Evan's overwhelmed expression. I'm not here because of money or guilt or corporate responsibility. I'm here because 2 generations of Colemen have taught me what real heroism looks like. She turns to address the crowd, her voice carrying clearly over the sound of cameras and traffic. The newspapers got it wrong 25 years ago, and they got it wrong 3 days ago. These aren't unnamed heroes. This is Samuel Cole's legacy, living and breathing in his grandson. The crowd begins to applaud, slowly at first, then building to something that sounds like redemption. But the moment that breaks hearts happens when 6-year-old Ethan steps forward and carefully pins something to Evan's jacket. It's a small orange paper crane, perfectly folded. Mia taught me how to make this, he says solemnly. She said it keeps heroes safe. Mia beams with pride, touching the blue scarf around her shoulders. Now we both have protection. Laura looks at Evan, her eyes bright with tears. Your grandfather's sacrifice wasn't forgotten. It was just waiting for the right moment to come home. The silver pocket watch in Evan's hand ticks steadily, its misaligned hands finally making perfect sense. Time doesn't stop for important moments. It creates a legacy that spans generations, connecting heroes across decades through the simple act of choosing others over yourself. The crowd's applause continues, but it's no longer about spectacle. It's about recognition, about justice delayed but not denied, about a hero's name finally being spoken aloud. The transformation happens gradually, then all at once. Within hours of Laura's public revelation, the narrative completely shifts. The same news outlets that called Evan a nameless risk-taker are now running features about the Cole legacy, 2 generations of heroes. Social media explodes with Dr. Cole heroes and never forgotten hashtags. But the most meaningful change happens in the quieter spaces. Laura invites Evan and Mia to her company's headquarters, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that reaches toward the clouds. The contrast with their small apartment is stark, but Laura has prepared for this carefully. I want to show you something, she says, leading them to a conference room where the walls are covered with photographs and newspaper clippings. The display tells a story of 43 lives, children who grew up to become teachers, doctors, artists, parents, wedding photos, graduation pictures, family portraits, all of them alive because Samuel Cole chose courage over safety 25 years ago. Every person in these photos has contributed to the Cole Legacy Fund, Laura explains, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. Your grandfather didn't just save lives that night, he saved futures. Mia studies the pictures with 7-year-old intensity, counting silently. Daddy, there are so many babies, she observes, pointing to the children in family portraits. 43 people he saved, plus their children, plus their children's children, Laura says softly. Heroes create families that might never have existed. The official announcement comes during a press conference that Laura insists on holding at the community center where Samuel Cole used to volunteer on weekends. The same building where the children's shelter once stood, now rebuilt and thriving. Today, we're not just correcting history, Laura announces to the assembled media. We're launching the Safe Haven program, inspired by the simple words Evan Cole spoke while bleeding in a parking lot. You're safe, kid. The program will provide protection and support for children in dangerous situations, with Evan serving as the community safety advisor. It's a role that uses his practical skills while honoring the family legacy of protection. The media attention reverses completely. The tabloid that once called Evan a cheap hero now runs a front-page apology titled, Heroes Among Us? The Story We Got Wrong. Editorial writers pen columns about rushing to judgment and the danger of cynicism. But the moment that truly heals comes during a quiet evening at the community center. Mia approaches Ethan, who's sitting alone while his mother meets with program coordinators. She pulls a fresh orange paper crane from her pocket, perfectly folded. "This is for you to keep," she says seriously. "It kept my daddy safe when he saved you. Now it's your turn to keep someone else safe." Ethan accepts the crane with the solemnity it deserves. "How do I keep people safe?" "You watch out for kids who look scared. You tell grown-ups when something's wrong. You remember that being safe isn't just for you." The wisdom of children distilled into actionable kindness. Later that evening, as security teams sweep the area and prepare for departure, an urgent radio call crackles through the command center. The men who attacked them in the parking lot have been apprehended, and during interrogation, they revealed their true target. Ethan wasn't random. The attack was specifically planned to kidnap Laura's son as leverage in a hostile business takeover. The shooting was meant to be a distraction while they grabbed the child and disappeared. Evan's intervention didn't just prevent an injury, it prevented an abduction. Laura receives this news while standing with Evan under the newly installed streetlights outside his apartment building. The broken light that had left his street dark for months has been replaced with modern LED fixtures that turn the narrow space into something warm and welcoming. "They were going to take him," she says, her voice hollow with the weight of what almost happened. Evan grips his silver pocket watch, feeling its steady tick against his palm. "But they didn't. Because of you. Because you saw a child in danger and didn't think about anything except protecting him." "It's what my grandfather would have done." Laura nods, tears reflecting the new streetlights. The Safe Haven program isn't just about funding or resources. It's about teaching people to see what you saw, to choose protection over self-preservation. She looks up at the apartment building where Evan and Mia live, at the windows now glowing with warm yellow light instead of hiding in darkness. "I have a question to ask you," she says carefully, "and I want you to know there's no wrong answer." Evan waits, patient as always. "Would you consider moving your family to a safer neighborhood? Not because I think you need rescuing, but because I think the world needs more people who understand what safety really means." She gestures to the street, transformed by light. "I've bought the apartment complex at the end of this block. I'm converting it into housing for families like yours, people who work hard, love deeply, and deserve communities that support them. You're asking if we want to be your neighbors? I'm asking if you'll help me build something your grandfather would be proud of, a place where heroes raise the next generation of heroes." Evan pulls the orange paper crane from his shirt pocket, the one Mia made that morning. Its bright color catches the new streetlight, casting shadows that look like wings. "Let me ask Mia," he says, "but I think she'll say yes." The pocket watch ticks steadily in his hand, its misaligned hands finally making perfect sense. Time doesn't stop for important moments. It creates legacies that grow stronger with each generation. 1 week later, under the warm glow of the new LED streetlights, the narrow street has become something magical. Children play safely in the evening light, their parents chatting on stoops that were once hidden in darkness. Laura arrives not in a black SUV, but walking down the sidewalk like any neighbor might, carrying a manila envelope and wearing the sea blue scarf around her neck. She finds Evan and Mia in their small front garden, where they're planting orange marigolds that will bloom bright as paper cranes. "I have something for you," Laura says, kneeling beside Mia to help with the flowers. "Something that belongs to your family." She opens the envelope to reveal a certificate of recognition from the city, dated 25 years ago, but never delivered. It officially names Samuel Cole as a distinguished community hero and establishes the Cole Legacy Fund as a permanent memorial to his sacrifice. But there's something else in the envelope that makes Evan's breath catch: a small silver key. "This opens the memorial garden we're building at the community center," Laura explains. "Your grandfather's name will be engraved on the entrance, along with everyone he saved. But more importantly, this key opens the Safe Haven emergency shelter we're building in the same location." She places the key in Mia's small hands. "Your daddy said, 'You're safe, kid,' to my son. Now we're making sure every child in this city can be safe too." The final twist comes when Mia carefully pins her newest orange paper crane to Laura's scarf, right next to her heart. "This is for when you feel scared," Mia explains with 7-year-old wisdom. "Heroes get scared too, but they help people anyway." Laura accepts the crane like a sacred gift, understanding that she's been entrusted with more than paper and hope. She's been given a place in a legacy that spans generations. As the three of them stand together under the bright streetlights, Evan pulls out his grandfather's silver pocket watch one last time. The hands still don't align perfectly, but they're moving steadily forward, marking time for all the moments yet to come. "You're safe, kid," he says softly. But this time he's speaking to the entire neighborhood, to every child who will grow up under these lights, protected by the legacy of heroes who chose courage over comfort. The watch ticks on, keeping time for the next generation of protectors. If you believe every child deserves to feel safe, subscribe Hero Dad Stories and share one moment when you felt truly protected.